Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick heads up. The second Global Product Owner Summit is coming soon. You can get all the details at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. And it's all lowercase, all one word. Oh, and stick with us until the end of the episode to know the dates and the tracks that we have for you in this year's summit. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday, the Leading Change episode, this week with Stephanie Cully. Hey, Stephanie, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, Vasco.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show to talk about what is definitely not an easy topic for Scrum Masters, but it is a very common topic for Scrum Masters. That is change, of course. And I like to call it leading change or change leadership. I don't think change can necessarily be managed in the literal sense of the word. But besides that, let's dive into one of those stories, Stephanie. Tell us a story of a change process you were involved with and walk us through the steps, how it happened step by step. And as you go through each of those steps, highlight for us the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the techniques you learned back then that you still apply today.
Yeah. So a specific example of when my team was going through a change was when I first started off as a Scrum Master, we were working on a traditional waterfall project. And the team was used to having the project plans, weekly meetings, really a heavy top-down approach of where is this, when is this going to be done, what are some of the issues that are going on. And I had to train the team on all of the different aspects of Agile and Scrum. And I think one of the most difficult things was in terms of adjusting from hours to story points. And I remember one specific, it was one of our early backlog refinement sessions where we were talking about a story and the team, they just wanted more concrete examples of how many hours is this? And having to have that conversation of this is really dealing with what's the impact? What are some of the unknowns? What is the level of effort? And helping them see some of these questions like, is this something that I've ever done before? Do I have something that I can compare it to? And once they had a starting point, they were able to grasp the concept. And I think the other important thing too was sometimes people look at change and they're like, I have to do this perfectly. I have to know exactly how many points or how long this is going to take. I have to have this mapped out and done exactly the way it needs to be done. And that's just not realistic, especially when you're working in an environment where there's so much unknown the first time you're doing something. And so for the team, when we were going through and using some of these tools, so we were using JIRA, I was able to introduce them to the velocity chart so they could understand like how many points did we commit to? Let's say they committed to 50 points and they ended up getting 25 done. So reassuring the team that, okay, it's not about things have to be perfect. It's why do we think we committed to this, but we only got halfway to our goal? Did we underestimate? Did we come into blockers? What really happened here? And do we feel like we're overcommitting? Do we feel like of the things that we actually did deliver, do we focus on delivering the right things? Do we deliver things that weren't as valuable or like a lower priority? And so the team started to understand, okay, I don't have to be perfect. And they were a lot more open to in the sprint planning sessions and the backlog refinement sessions, like, okay, is this a 5-pointer, 5-point story? Someone disagrees. Okay, we're not going to sit here and have an argument for like 20 minutes over what it is. Let's just come to a common, conversation about, well, why do you think it's this many points? Have you ever done this before? What are some of the obstacles that we might face? And as they were able to go through those conversations, they're like, okay, let's agree on this amount, and we can always go back later and have a comparison on how to do this.
So it sounds to me that one of the main strategies, maybe if we could use that word, that you used with that team was to try to clarify the purpose of refinement and the purpose of the planning aspect, right? Like comparing with the velocity chart and so on. Is that how you look at it now that you're here and looking back at that moment in time? Is that how you see it? Do you see that you use that explanation of purpose as kind of a strategy for change?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things, the biggest lessons for me was going in, not really knowing what I was doing as a Scrum Master, just starting off the first time is, okay, we went over these different topics of what are these events? What is backlog refinement? What is a retrospective? To a lot of people, it's not about, okay, it's just a planning session or we have to come up with a set number of points so we can report this out to our leadership team. I always look forward and say, let me step back and say, like, this is the purpose of this meeting. The reason that we're having backlog refinement is so we can get a better understanding of what the customer wants, go over any questions that we have, and be better prepared to like have the product owner prioritize that and have the team figure out with the product owner what do we want to work on in this upcoming sprint. So that's really how I've approached it going forward is yes, have a conversation with the team, explain to them the purpose, but keep having the conversation because for a lot of people, the way that they learn, just having that conversation one time or having that discussion one time may not be enough. And you even get you even get team members that are like, what's the point? Why am I here? Why am I spending so many hours in this session? I thought that Scrum was supposed to make it so I have less meetings. And then sometimes I would have a developer and they're like, I don't understand why I'm here. So I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation outside. And I said, how many hours have you spent wasted that you worked on something and then you found out it was wrong? And they're like, okay, 10 hours. How many hours of rework did you end up doing? 5 hours. How frustrated were you that you worked on something that wasn't even used? Incredibly frustrated. So having that conversation and helping them really understand like, oh, okay, well, if I spend an hour here, that's going to eliminate, who knows, maybe 20 hours of rework or work that was done and has to be completely thrown away. So I think just having more of that specific example with them helps them understand.
Yeah, one of the aspects that comes to my mind from this conversation is that, especially Scrum Masters that have experience with Scrum, tend to assume that the people around understand Scrum. Of course, these days, there's very few people who come from waterfall-like processes into Scrum. But there's a lot of people who come from chaotic development into Scrum. And it is quite constraining for a developer who has never had any structure other than maybe a notepad with some notes from a call or an email that they had with the product owner. And then suddenly they need to meet at least 3 times to talk about the sprint that's planning the not 3 times more because of the daily and the retro, right? The review and retro. Yeah. And before they didn't even meet with the product owner. They just sent stuff over email, right? And for me, at least that's been one of the insights that I've gotten working with teams that have come from that kind of background. I've realized that there are still many teams out there who maybe had an overbearing project manager who handled all the details, quote unquote. Of course, they never did, but they thought they did. And the developers were kind of shielded from the reality of thinking through the user story, having the requirements specified through the refinement process, etc. And Scrum can feel too constraining, too like a straitjacket, no?
Exactly. Yeah, I've had so many developers just asking me, what's the point of being here? Or why do I need to understand? I just need to sit down and code. And once again, I'll have a side conversation with them and ask, okay, so can you tell me a little bit about what the main purpose of this is that you're working on? And they're like, I don't know. I just know that I need to build this report or I need to do this functionality. And I'm like, okay, so tell me how you understand this user story. They'll go through, they'll explain it. And then when I give them additional feedback on, what the reality is of what the user is looking for, I'm like, would this change the way that you would design it? And they're like, absolutely. So just that right there shows them that having a good understanding of how it's being used could influence how they develop it. It could influence the outcome and even the amount of time that they're spending doing it. It could simplify things. It could make it a lot easier for them to develop it, or they may have missed some things that needed to be added in.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think about the purpose of meetings that like daily stand up or the refinement meeting or the planning meeting, when we think about that purpose, we also need to understand that we need to be able to convey the purpose from their perspective, right? Like just like you illustrated right now, having that conversation about, so how do you understand this user story, and then giving feedback and so on. And this illustrates, like that conversation illustrates why refinement is important, because that conversation needs to happen, right? It can happen before we write the code, that's cheaper and faster, or it can happen after we write the code, and that's slower and more expensive.
Yeah. And I think a lot of developers get frustrated too, because they're like, I don't really understand what it is that this person is looking for. And I know some teams that I've gone to, they're like completely shielded from the user, the product owner, whoever's representing the customer. And they're like, I'm just going to try my best. Let me build out something and see what comes back. And they end up doing so much rework or getting, feedback that they weren't expecting. And it creates a lot of frustration and wasted time and money.
Absolutely. And that's why we have Scrum designed the way it is, to try to avoid that frustration and wasted time and money.
Yeah, for sure.
Stephanie, thank you very much for sharing that story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around and listening to the details of the Product Owner Summit, this year's global summit dedicated to a critical Scrum role, the Product Owner role, of course. We'll have some amazing keynotes and 4 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. The summit will take place between April 23rd and 25th, so book your calendars. There will be loads of sessions for you to attend. One of the keynotes will be Dave West, the product owner and CEO at Scrum.org, one of the largest Scrum organizations in the world. If you want to know more, check out the details at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/product owner 2024. We will also have 4 tracks. The 4 tracks will cover cross-functional product ownership. That's track 1. As Pixar's Ratatouille said, not every idea can be a great idea, but a great idea can come from anywhere. And this quote emphasizes the importance of a product owner being open to all ideas, regardless of the source, and also challenges us to focus on getting good ideas from everywhere and involving the whole team in the product owner role and responsibilities. The second track is Designing Products for Growth, where we explore how to craft products ready for scalable growth, merging practical strategies with innovation. The idea here is to learn to design products for growth, whether it is sales or customer acquisition. The third track is Know Your Users, user-centric approaches for Agile development. In this track, we learn to master user-centric techniques in Agile development, to deeply understand customer needs and transform insights into meaningful UX designs that focus on engagement and satisfaction. This is a track ideal for innovation-focused Agile teams. And the fourth track, one of the most exciting tracks in my opinion, is product development with AI, ideas for product owners. Not only do we discuss about using AI in the products, but also AI for product owners to learn to make a bigger impact with the help of the AI tools that we already have. The Product Owner Summit will also present to you great opportunities to network with your peers. So get your ticket and join our Slack. You can get the ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/product owner 2024. As always, we have free tickets and also the paid tickets that help to support this podcast. So check them out at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all lowercase, all one word, product owner 2024. I'll see you in the summit floor.